on our YouTube page. So after this meeting, I'll send out a general recording of the Zoom meeting, and as well as later down in the month, we'll be posting this recording on our YouTube page. Of course, this event will be possible without our sponsor, Vertis Technology, particular present, G5, which Gavin is a part of, and he's been helping to host the intro into cybersecurity workshop series, which is held every second Saturday going forward. And of course, my own company, OSUB, which operates the Jamaican developers community. With that said, hopefully I don't need a big introduction. I've been in the space for quite a while. I'm Oshane Bailey, co-founder of OSUB, and as well as the Jamaican developers community. The community is geared towards building and leveraging the development skills of Jamaica, Jamaicans to produce like high valuable solution to the community, to Jamaica and the world at large. So we are all about upskilling, bringing awareness to cybersecurity, different technology and their solutions, and making better software solution and infrastructure. On this call with me is Latifa Smiley, which is our communication officer at OSUB and also communication officer at Jamaican Developers Community. She tends to organize all of these events and all of the proceeding, and also help with the marketing of these events. So big thanks to her and the team for getting everyone here and promoting this event. Of course, there are various tech communities in Jamaica, and we, not just in Jamaica, but the Caribbean as well. And we are all about collaborating and communicating with all of these tech communities, and basically bring a lot of opportunity, knowledge, workshop, events, and other job opportunities to you, as well as any news in tech. So as mentioned before, Gavin from G5, which also is from the founder for CSP at community in the Caribbean, Cybersecurity and Privacy Association is also on this call. There's other tech communities like WordPress, Docker, Make Better, Google Developers Group, the plethora meetup group. All of this, these tech communities has been active, and they have their own individual chat where you can learn more about their specific technology and what they're about. We'll send the link for all of these tech communities in Jamaica and the Caribbean in the chat shortly. But would you want to move on to just introducing our guest speakers, which is basically Andrew Gordon, which I'm not sure is here as yet. But I'll just quickly touch on his experience. He is a computer forensic analyst. He actually has tons of experience in a lot of different fields in technology, or I should say cybersecurity, from data privacy, policy development, infrastructure design, infrastructure security, security auditing, and so forth. So he's supposed to touch on computer forensic today and what it takes to get into that field. As mentioned, I'm not sure if he's here, so I'm going to quickly go to another speaker that isn't here, but we're looking forward to have her another time, and she is Ariel Francis, which is the Security Operational Manager at Digicel. So hopefully next month, when she's more available, she had a meeting that she had to go to. So hopefully next month, we can get her to give you a quick intro on the security operation manager and what it would take to get to that level. And of course, Gavin. Um, I would say Gavin don't need an introduction. He has made a lot of, like topics, talks, and helped out quite a lot of companies in Jamaica and bringing awareness to cybersecurity in the Caribbean. Of course, during the whole JAMCOVID situation, there's been quite a lot of, activity on Twitter. Gavin was one of those individuals that been helping companies, bringing awareness, and he's been in the space for over 6 years and has been promoting and encouraging more developers to become a more secure developer, which is a part of the meetup series / workshop we have every second Saturday. So what we'll do from here is ask Gavin to jump into his presentation. And of course, a matter of fact, before we continue, anyone has any questions or comment thus far? You can raise your hand or type it in the chat. Okay, no. All right, so with that said, Gavin, you can take the stage and present. You should be able to have the ability to share your screen.
All right. All right, thanks. Thanks, Oshin. Thanks, Latifa. And thanks for everyone for joining. I also appreciate it. So the session today will be around, helping you understand what a career in cybersecurity could be, helping you understand what I do, etc. What I do, the pros and cons, the positives and the negatives of my industry, and so that you can better decide, if cybersecurity is for you, and if you want to explore it. Now I'm going to share, and feel free to ask questions and such. So as Oshin mentioned earlier, I work at G5 Cybersecurity. I am a director there. So in terms of who you're talking to, especially for those of you who are not familiar with me, I am a director at G5, and G5 is a cybersecurity and data privacy company. G5 is registered in both the USA and Belize. Everyone works remote. So I work from Germany. Right now I'm in Germany. I'm also a director at the Caribbean CSPA, which is the Caribbean Cybersecurity and Privacy Association. And the whole purpose of that, of forming that, which started last year, is to create an association dedicated to security and privacy, which is independent of all of the different certs which are out there. Additionally, I've supported companies in Asia, Africa, North America, and Europe. I forgot to add Europe to that. So I've worked with companies who, they have very diverse backgrounds, diverse ways of how they do things. And that really helps in terms of me giving you a perspective that is not just based around Jamaica and the Caribbean, but also how companies work in other parts of the world, which are just very different from our cultural habits. Additionally, in terms of my background, I didn't start out in cybersecurity. I actually started out in accounting, auditing and accounting. So my first job about 13 years ago, I started out as a financial auditor, right? Eventually moving on from that into two accounting roles. Then at that point, I decided, hey, this isn't for me. And then I started to transition. So I started to say, all right, I've always liked IT. I've always really been interested in that, a lot more passionate than the whole accounting field. And I started to make that transition, which took about 2 years of studying and changing jobs until I actually landed a security related job. So I'll talk a bit about that too. I've completed CAT within ACCA, which was a certified accounting technicians. I've passed ACCA exams before. I decided to stop. I think I passed maybe two, and I decided, hey, I'm not going any further with this. So I have a very strong background in business. So I understand accounting very well. I understand auditing very well, whether that's operational audit, IT audit. And that's just to help you understand who I am. I'm not just an IT or cybersecurity person. Now, what I do, sorry, let me just check the time. So what I do, I lead G5 cybersecurity, and at G5, I participate in a few things, such as pen testing, vulnerability scanning, endpoint detection and response, application security assessments. Now, we do a lot we provide a lot of services outside of these, but because of my background, working as a consultant with different companies from Jamaica to Europe and then traveling, I have experience doing lots of different things within cybersecurity. And even before the whole cybersecurity career, I spent a lot of time just, playing around in different areas of different areas of IT, just to figure out, some of the things that the different aspects that I like. So at one point, I used to repair mobile phones. I used to unlock phones. At one point, I was, trying to learn web development, building websites, all sorts of different things that evolved over the years. I got better. So lots of different things, and all of that now comes together into G5 and all of the different things that I do. Pen testing is something that you might be familiar with because it's very hot in the news. You hear about these, systems being hacked, and people tend to really just immediately jump to pen testing when they're thinking about security. And there are a lot more things in cybersecurity than pen testing. There are a lot of different things that you can do, and so just keep your mind open about the possibilities. Don't immediately just jump to ethical hacking because it's hot in the news. There are lots of other things within cybersecurity that you can do. So, how do you get started? I usually give the advice that you should just start small. So people often come to me and they see that I'm doing these different things in cybersecurity, and they kind of just assume that you have to jump from where they are now to being known, or to being some senior professional and having the CISSP and all of these certs. And I always just suggest to them, start small, start doing just some very, very basic things. Right now, those basic things include learning about IT networking. So understanding how, like, the basics of how networks are connected and how the internet works. The very, like, bare minimum, just start with the very tiny stuff, because in the end, cybersecurity might not really be a career that you like, right? But when you start to learn the different little things, it helps you to figure out, is this something do I really want to learn about these type of things? Do I really want to have this as part of my job description? So start small and then build. Even with certifications, don't just jump from no experience, no knowledge, to doing some really senior certification because it's popular and it's hot in the news. Start very small. Start with Security Plus and a few others that I'll talk about. Next, get a book. So buy a book. Now, I or at least from your perspective, it might sound like, this is just too basic. It's just too simple. And I get a lot of requests from people who they're asking, they're saying that they're serious about getting into cybersecurity and they really want to know what to do. And when I ask them about, like, the bare minimum, oftentimes they haven't done any of them, right? They haven't bought a book, or they don't have a book, whether you find it online for free or you buy it. They haven't tried to enroll in a course. So they, whether it's an online course or physical course, they haven't tried to do that. They haven't really started to do much research to learn the basics of the area, right? They haven't started to network with people who are in the industry. Apart from just contacting someone to say, hey, how do they get to this? They haven't started to talk to people to understand, what do you do? What is it like? They don't attend these type of events, right? So I'm saying that all of the things that will help you to move from where you are now to being really great in the industry, it starts with just covering some very basic bases. Next up is enrolling in a course. Courses can be online or physical, but based on Corona and where we are now, it's very likely that you have to be settling for something online. So Pluralsight, Udemy, CBT Nuggets, Linda, Cybrary, these are just some of the names of popular courses, popular places online where you can register for a course that will walk you through, the basics of cybersecurity, and even the basics of a specific certification within cybersecurity that you can then take. Last up is do a lot of research. I find that this can be difficult for some persons because it comes down to doing a lot of reading, going down several rabbit holes to learn about different things, practically applying the knowledge that you're seeing in books. So trying to set up a virtual lab, a virtual machine, trying to boot Kali, running into all of the different issues that you could run into along the way. Oh, your Kali isn't booting, your scan isn't running, your tool isn't working the way how it says in the book. I'm trying to troubleshoot and figure out, what's going wrong. This is a very critical part of the learning process. Some of the tools just don't work exactly how the book tells you, and you have to research to figure out why it's not working like that. Some of the things in the books you might find contradictory info from what the book is telling you, from what someone else told you, from what you saw online, and you now have to do a lot of research to figure out what really makes sense. So do a lot of research. Good skills to have. From my perspective, recommending to you, you'll have the cliche things, good communication skills, good verbal skills, good conflict resolution skills, all of those fancy stuff, right? Typical. But primarily, when it comes to cybersecurity, you need to be able to take initiative to learn and to try something for yourself before you escalate and ask someone about it. So that's a very, very critical skill, especially for me, looking at people who I'd want to work with, that type of thing. People who take initiative, that is one of the biggest assets. So you're thinking about cybersecurity as a career, you're interested, right? Now, again, I'm using this example to highlight that sometimes it might sound like it's very simple, but I get a lot of these requests. So people have contacted me about jobs. People have contacted me about wanting to start, right? Now, when someone contacts me, one of the first things that I really want to figure out is what they've done so far so that I can fill the gaps into what they're trying, which isn't working for them so far, and and to see what I can add to that. But if it is that they haven't tried anything, then I don't really have some type of magic formula. Now, as you're learning and you're trying to get into security, whether you're job hunting or you're practicing for the Security Plus exam or some certification, it's important to take initiative to research and to try something first and see what doesn't work for you. Then when you run into that issue, then you escalate it and try to bring in someone else to say, okay, You've been trying this, but it hasn't been working. You've been applying to jobs, or you've been trying to run this virtual machine. You've been trying to execute this security test. You've been trying to replicate this activity that you're learning, and it's just not working. And this is the result that you have. Now it's time for someone to see how they can help you troubleshoot that. So having initiative to take the first step to run into the issue, that is a very, very good skill to have. As you get into the field, you realize that people are swamped. They have these tons of meetings, they have tons of things they have to do for themselves. And if it is that you go to someone with a problem and they realize that you, especially for security people, they will have this common thing that, hey, have you checked the manual? Have you checked the guide? Have you tried to find why this isn't working? And that's something they will immediately try to do. So it's important to have initiative, to be able to take initiative to try and figure out why something isn't working. Then you escalate. Next up is writing clearly and concisely. For maybe, I'd say 80% of everything that I've been doing over the years, I'd say that the most critical part that will make you successful is what you can communicate. So what you can write down and communicate in a document. If you're going to be a consultant like myself, or even just in your company, it's going to be very common for you to produce reports, whether that's a report that you send to a client or a report that you give to your management. But being able to write clearly and concisely is a very, very critical skill. Example, when I do a pen test, you go through, you hack the systems, etc. You have all of these lovely results. You can't just take all of that data dump and just send it to someone. You have to put that into a format where you're communicating what the issue is, which findings, which vulnerability you discovered, why is this vulnerability bad for the business, what is the level of risk that it poses to the business, and this is typically in a thing like high, medium, low, right? Recommendation, how do they resolve it? All of these are things that you need to document, and it happens for almost everything. So no matter how technical you are, the end result is that you will have to communicate something to the recipient, and that's usually in a formal way, some kind of document, whether in a PowerPoint like this. So being able to write concisely, being able to write without fluff, that's where the concise really comes in, and then being able to write clearly so that what you're saying is technically accurate. That's going to be a very, very critical skill. I have spent, although you can be, just a general person and not really stand out, you just go to work, get paid, go home. I've deliberately tried to so-called be exceptional, right? So some of the things I've done just to help you understand, my background, some of the things I've done is I've bought books on writing. I've bought books on grammar. So I've joined the Toastmasters and tried to learn how to do public speaking. So the whole thing about writing clearly and concisely, and especially even for the verbal part of things, there are a lot of things that you need to develop for yourself, which have nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's more around everything else that supports it, so that you're doing the technical stuff, but you now need to communicate that in a way that's receptive. Explaining well to non-technical. As you move up, you will start to have more discussions with people who don't know anything about cybersecurity. They're not even interested, but you need to communicate information to them, and this can be whether to the management in your company. It might be to HR. When you go to an interview, HR just wants to understand, hey, tell us about cybersecurity. Now, HR might not have any specific interest in that, but they don't want to listen to see if what you're telling them sounds like it makes sense. Additionally, you will have to do presentations, you will have to be a part of board meetings. Now there's a whole thing of being online and constantly in meetings, so you have to be in Zoom meetings and people will be asking you for your input. And it doesn't matter if you're a junior or if you're at the senior level, people will at some point be asking and questioning you to see if you sound like someone who is knowledgeable and who knows about the area of cybersecurity. So being able to explain well to people who are non-technical, people who are not also cybersecurity professionals, that's a very, very important skill, good skill to have. Positives and negatives. So people have a general, in my opinion, people have a general perception that it's just all fun. Cybersecurity is just hot in the news and everything that you do must just be great. Now, there are some really good things about the industry. One, because the industry is so wide and it is so hot, there are lots of different things that you can specialize in. For example, within the area of doing security assessments like pen testing, you can specialize within that area on various things. So you can have an entire career where you're only doing pen testing for networks, or you're only doing pen testing for web apps and nothing else, or just for mobile apps. So there are, and even for people, which is considered social engineering. So the industry is just so wide that you can decide that you're not going to be learning about all of these different things like vendor risk management and and hardening a Windows system. You can just decide to focus on just one little area, and you can have an entire career for that area alone. So that's a very good thing about it. Next up, there are excessive amount of jobs available with really good salaries. For most of you here, you're in the Caribbean. The common problem I find with people looking for cybersecurity jobs in the Caribbean is that there aren't a lot of cybersecurity jobs in the Caribbean. A lot of businesses know that they need the people for these jobs, but they haven't created the job posts for them. So what often happens is you're qualified, you've done your degree, you've done an entry-level certification, and you're looking for a job, but you're just not seeing any of those job posts. You're contacting companies and they're saying, hey, they don't have any openings. Now, if you check LinkedIn for Jamaica and you search for things like people with the title of cybersecurity or network security, that type of thing, you won't find a lot, right? It might be maybe 100, 150. I don't remember what's the last figure I saw, especially for Jamaica. I think I was maybe like somewhere in the hundreds. Now, in my opinion, you have to open yourself up to working in other territories if you're really going to get started in cybersecurity. A lot of companies are looking into remote, but although the tons of jobs are out there, they are not particularly in the Caribbean. So that's something just to be aware of, so that you don't feel demotivated when you've started to job hunt and you're just not getting much feedback from the Caribbean for job interviews relating to cybersecurity. Next positive, you don't need a degree. I don't have a degree, just to be clear. The cybersecurity industry, it has a very strong reliance on certifications. So the way how certifications are designed, it leads companies to be more dependent on them. With a degree, you go to school, you do the degree, and that's finished. And you just have that degree, and you don't need to update yourself. You don't need to learn about anything else. You just do that degree, you have it for life. Certifications operate a little different. They have requirements where people need to prove to the certification body each year that they are continuing to learn about the relevant technologies and about the staying up to date, staying abreast, while with a degree you don't. So what happens now is that companies kind of look at these two qualifications and they say, hey, someone who has this certification, I know that it means that they are staying up to date. But someone who has a degree, they could have gotten that degree 10, 15 years ago, or however years ago, and they have no proof that this person has been staying up to date, staying abreast. So they now rely more on the certifications because of the kind of requirements that people have to meet to maintain those certifications. And those are called CPEs, oftentimes, continuing professional education. Now, the downsides or the negatives. The industry has been known to have just really unrealistic expectations. You'll often see job posts asking for just an excessive amount of years of experience, and it stretches right across IT. And also, you might see, just requests for several certifications, and it might not match up with the nature of the job. So this is something to look out for. Although, yes, lots of jobs are available, sometimes the requirements can make you feel that, well, there's no way for you to meet all of those requirements, or you need to study for an X amount of years, or to spend X amount of money, an excessive amount of money to get all of those qualifications just to apply for this entry-level job. So that's a little downside. That's an industry-wide problem where HR and the companies who are putting out these job ads, they need to make them more realistic. Lastly, you can run into the issue of working excess hours. So hold on, let me just check the. Okay, so you can run into an issue of having excess hours, where working excess hours, where there's just a really high amount of pressure that can be put on you as a staff member to be supporting with all of these cybersecurity things. Now, because the news is so hot, and there's this constant issue of people attacking corporate networks and etc., that pressure and that load can sometimes filter down to the people, to the staff who are working in the cybersecurity, in some area of cybersecurity. That can lead to people just having constant anxiety, that they're worrying that their company might be hacked and they might be blamed. It might also lead to you working lots of overtime because the company isn't hiring the quantity of people, or they're saying that they have difficulty finding people who are qualified and experienced. So it's common for me to hear people complaining about working excessive hours and having anxiety and just panicking that something might be hacked. So that's something to be mindful of. Additionally, it's good to ensure that the company you're working for, they care about whether you're working these excess hours. And this is no matter the level that you are, it's important that you take care of your health, no matter the industry. But for cybersecurity, it is a common complaint that I've seen. Now, earlier I mentioned qualifications. Let me just pause for a little. So based on everything that I said so far, does anyone have any questions? Questions, anyone? All right, so I guess not. So certifications, I talked earlier about degrees and certifications, and why some companies are relying more on certifications. So these are our designations demonstrating that you are competent, you're professionally competent in an area. And remember, I mentioned also that cybersecurity is very wide. So there are lots of different certifications and lots of different things that you can do and specialize in. Money. When comparing certifications or doing a degree, there are a few things that you should consider. The return on investment. Certifications give you a higher return on investment. You spend less money and you get a similar return. So you can do a certification like CompTIA Security Plus, which costs about 350 US, and that can help you to land an entry-level job. Right? you can then spend about, in terms of US, about 10,000 US to do a degree to meet the minimum requirements for that same job. Now, to me, that's a much better return on investment to spend 6 months, 350 US for the exam, maybe another 300 in terms of books and online classes to meet the minimum requirements to get that same job. So in my opinion, there's a much higher return on investment to doing a certification versus a degree. Now, at some point, you might have some companies who will say, okay, to be a part of their C-suite or, their senior management team, they need you to have an MBA. And at that point, then sure, maybe then a degree might become relevant, but that's many years down the line and still only just a possibility, not a definite thing. So return on investment for certifications are higher. Cost of study materials, it's cheaper to buy materials for a certification versus the requirements for a degree program. The cost to maintain for a certification in the long run, like over maybe a 30-year period, then you might spend a little more money to maintain a certification than a degree, because each year, how the certifications work is that each year you have to pay like a membership fee. This is usually somewhere from between maybe 80 US dollars to about 150 US, depending on the qualification. Some don't have an annual maintenance fee, but this is something that you pay for life as long as you keep that certification. You can let your cert expire, but that's something that you would have, an expense that you would have for life if you keep it for life, right? So that's something to consider from the money perspective. Here are some entry-level certs.
Gavin,
yes.
Okay, before you continue, someone asked a question in the chat. Are certifications the only way you can prove to your employers that you are knowledgeable?
So no, right? The thing is that businesses want to validate your knowledge. Now, right across the industry, businesses have different ways or things that they value in terms of how they validate that. Some people might say, show us a portfolio of blog articles that you've written, or something online that you have to prove that you know about cybersecurity. Another might say, what type of qualifications do you have, which is the standard? Do you have a certification or do you have a degree? So if you don't have a cert, then they are going to ask, do you have a degree? Do you have an associate's, a bachelor's, a master's? So at some point they will want some type of paper to prove that you have the knowledge, or you've been tested to have the knowledge that you claim to have. Some will say, show us your experience. Is it that, yeah, you don't have any qualifications, but you've been working for a while in cybersecurity, so that proves that you are actually proficient in actually doing the job, or doing the job that they want you to do. So no, so certs are not the only way. It will be between a certification, a degree, and maybe if there's some other type of skill-based qualification that you can prove to them that you have, then that will help.
A follow-up for the cert, based on what you said, considering a degree is literally a one-time thing. Of course, over time, the knowledge that you gain for doing that degree, it don't necessarily expire, but the rapid rate of changes in technology makes it become irrelevant. So our effective would, like, for example, from your sense, doing a degree, no, you kind of touch on it, but considering that you went into the ROI between the degree and the certification, but in the long run, does it really make sense having like like some masters in some form of security, considering that, you know, the industry constantly changes?
So so it's a two-part answer. So one of the things that's making degrees become irrelevant is the university, or at least our universities. So universities oftentimes are not updating their curriculum, and they are just reselling the same degree program for 10, 15 years. So because people know that this has become a standard, they eventually are now devaluing what the degrees mean in terms of cybersecurity, or at least IT. If universities decide to start making it a habit to update their curriculum as things are improving in the industry or changing in the industry, then it will now keep degrees relevant or even more relevant than qualifications. Additionally, how businesses are viewing these things, because a degree program takes so long to complete, while they can have a staff member who is ready for work within 6 months with a certification, or even 3 to 4 months. The turnaround time on a certification is just much quicker. No business wants to wait 4 years before their staff member is now considered qualified, because they need to make money now. So over time, I think just the design of degrees and how universities operate, that is, they are making themselves irrelevant. So it's not a case that degrees are inherently bad. It's just that the way how universities are administering them now and how they are designed, they are causing themselves to become irrelevant. Now, here's just a quick table. So I have about 5 minutes left. Here's just a quick table around the difference between certifications and degrees. And this will help you to understand, so that after this, you have a more, you can have a practical idea of the type of steps to take depending on your budget and the time frame that you're giving yourself to get into security. If you can wait 3 to 4 years before having a degree, or that paper to validate that you are ready for work, good. But if it is that you're saying, hey, you would love to get started in 6 months time, then this should give you just a good idea. So one, certifications are affordable. Compared to a degree, you're looking at a budget of maybe 600 US from start to finish, and that can be even lower, right? From the point of, I want to get into cybersecurity, to I am qualified to work in cybersecurity. A degree, you're looking at 10,000 US and more. Certifications require continuous learning. So if you're going to take certifications, be prepared that after you've earned it, that you might be required to prove to your education, the educational body, that you are continuing to learn. Sometimes these requirements look like you you submitting proof that you've attended webinars, that you've written articles, and they give you lots of different options, and each of those options have what they call, you can consider them as points. So they might say, if you attend 1 hour a webinar that lasts for 1 hour, that's considered as 1 CPE. And for the entire year, you might be required to submit, let's say, 50 CPEs or 100 CPEs over a 3-year period, something like that. So they have different activities which you can basically earn a point, and that point contributes to your proof that you are staying up to date and that you are continuously learning. Third, certifications can expire. So some of them have, let's say, about a 3-year period where they say after 3 years, you have to submit a certain number of CPEs, or we're going to mark your certification as expired. It's no longer valid. There are also some, I think Cisco used to do it like this, but I think they've stopped, where after a certain number of years, I think you'd need to do another qualification to continue, right? So you don't just keep it for as long as you want. After 3 years, it expires, and you can only renew it or keep it by doing a higher level qualification or doing another qualification, something like that. So certs can expire, degrees don't. Once you do your degree, you have that paper, you have it for life. So if you have a degree from 1980, you still have a degree in computer science from 1980, and now we're in 2020. I'm sure the technology then is significantly outdated to what we're using now, but two persons are saying that they have the same degree. So now you see, you know, how it's becoming a bit how it can seem a bit unfair to judge those two persons as being qualified in the same way. Someone who knows about 2020 technology versus someone who was qualified in 1980 technology. Lastly, certifications can take 6 months or less to acquire. If you have you know, the time to study, you're not working a job and studying, you can have your first cert in about 3 months. If you're studying part-time, you're going to work every day full-time, I would suggest that you take 6 months to study, practice, and become ready to take the certification exam, such as CompTIA Security Plus. When I was studying, I worked full-time for all of my career, and I studied part-time. And for almost all of my certs, I did them in about 5 to 6 months, and I found that it was a reasonable time to, you know, balance everything. You know, go to work, study, do the practice questions, and do the research on the things that I didn't really know. I found that 5 to 6 months was just a really good time to be prepared. For degrees, you are looking at about 2 to 5 years to get them. Now, most people don't really have that kind of time, right? If you're doing an associate's, you can have it done in about 2 years. If you're doing a bachelor's, you're looking at about 3 to 5 years. Full-time, maybe 3 years, part-time up to 5. And for a master's, you're looking at about 2 years. So depending on how much time you have to offer to that process, then a degree might be for you. While if you don't really have that type of time and money, a certification might be a better option for you. And now at the end, if you are a Caribbean woman or girl on this session, I would encourage you to join the Women in InfoSec Caribbean group. It's a group dedicated to really helping Caribbean women to develop a career in InfoSec. So we do lots of random things, such as, you know, periodic trainings, share knowledge. Eventually we get speakers, we offer resources, so all of the members have access to a digital library. So if you're interested in moving into that area and you're a Caribbean woman or girl, you can join the Discord group. And I'll paste the link afterwards, but it's something that would be good for you to join, and it's led by G5. And that's it. I hope I didn't go much over the time, but, you know, thanks everyone. I hope that the info I've shared, it helps to give you some realistic perspective on what you're going to be up against if you're deciding to do a degree versus do a certification, and, you know, also in terms of time, money, expectations of the industry, the positives and the negatives of the whole cybersecurity thing, and just some of the career options and things that you can do if you decide to try and explore a career in this area.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Gavin. I'm going to allow, because we want to get to Andrew before 7, 2 questions if anyone has any questions, and just a reminder to everyone that the link for Caribbean Cybersecurity and Privacy Association is in the chat, as well as the link for Women in InfoSec. Any questions before Gavin leaves? Okay, all right, so let's move. We're gonna move on to Mr. Gordon, and as was said before.
Latifa. Someone asked a question. With so many career paths in cybersecurity, what would you recommend as the best way to find the right fit for you?
So I'd recommend starting with an entry-level course, right? So the entry-level course would cover the basics in different areas. And then from there, because you're getting a sample of the different areas, such as, it will tell you a little about, teach you about pen testing, it will teach you about incident response, application security. You'll then have a chance to kind of figure out which of those areas you find most interesting. And then based on what you find most interesting, you do more research into it. And it should help you to decide which of the many different areas that you want to eventually dive deeper into. So I'd suggest starting with a course that covers multiple areas. Try to learn about the multiple areas at the very basic level. And then from there, that should help you to filter. Nah, I don't really like this. Yeah, I find this really interesting. And then you can dive deeper, and that should help you to decide, where you really focus.
Okay, great. Do we have any more questions? Okay, so we're going to move on to Mr. Andrew Gordon. As said before earlier, for those who weren't here, Mr. Gordon has over 10 years of experience in information security, and he wears many hats regionally, working and advocating in a lot of the fields within the cybersecurity industry, including data privacy.
Then you avoid them as much as you can. All right. So the whole idea of information forensics, and I think Gavin had pointed to finding what you like. I like a lot of things in security, but I just love policies and procedures, right? I get excited in creating policies and procedures because I get to determine what you can and cannot do on the network. And then I like to put the punishment inside of it, right? So that's the part of it I like doing. I like to design the security stuff, and yeah, I mean, you younger persons can focus on ports and protocols and pen testing and all those lovely stuff, yes? But I do have an appreciation for it, and I know it's space in what we do. So I pretty much started out at UTech. That's where I get my undergraduate degree. And then I moved into the master's in security right after. But having completed a master's in security, you had a wide appreciation for enterprise concepts. But I got my technical grounding in CompTIA Security Plus. All right. And that time it was 100 multiple choice exam when I passed Security Plus first. So it's not as short as it was now. That time every exam come with 100 questions. And at that time CISSP was a 6-hour challenge, right? So you sit in that exam room for 6 hours. But I think for these certifications, if you know what you're about, you should just spend an hour in the exam. If 1.5 hour pass, it means that you don't know what you're doing and then they're guessing. If you're well prepared, all right, you should be able to get through very fast. And I stick a bet with someone. So I finished CISSP in 1 hour and then go back over it in 1 hour. I didn't need to spend the rest of time in there trying to guess and spell what was on the exam. But in the area of cyber forensics, though, I did spend a lot of time taking many hours. And if you want to get ahead in cybersecurity or in IT or in anything you're doing, I always encourage individuals, find what you like and become an expert at it. You cannot be, and I had this conversation yesterday with someone. I don't really appreciate when someone tell me that they're IT professional. I get very nervous because it means that you can do everything in IT and you're not an expert in anything, really. So I stay to my core, and I like the computer forensics part of it. It's kind of like, where the IT people become CSI guy, but it's a very deep field in cybersecurity that takes time to learn. It took me almost 2 years of professional training, and I was spending 2,000 something per 2,000 something per session to amass the skills. It took me 4 days, 9 to 5, to understand the NTFS file system so you can investigate it. So it's a very um, fun field to get into, but you have to have tolerance, patience, and the desire to do a lot of training, because it takes, anyone can put you in a class for 5 days and teach you how to image a hard drive and start to, go around it. But when you start going through the evidence and being able to find what you want, for example, you have to have knowledge in your head that a Windows XP machine, the first 63 sectors is reserved by the operating system, and the master file table is somewhere there. So while the file may have been deleted, you can find evidence of it in the master file table. Windows 10 and all these have the first 20, 48 sectors reserved. And so those are some technical language when you get deep, deep down into forensics. So in Security Plus, you're told it's imaging the hard drive, preserving the evidence chain of custody, right? But when you get deep down into it now, you're wondering what happens in sector 0, right? Let me give you a scenario. A computer repairs person, just think when you turn on that. Anyone here who's a computer repair person? You support computers, you maintain them, anyone? Any side around? Oh, you know of them. All right, you know of them. So the average computer guy will tell you that you hit the power button and the computer comes on. The digital forensics person will tell you that when you hit the power button, it causes the computer to go into post, and it pulls the data from the BIOS, and all kind of story goes on before it gets to sector 0, which is probably 512 bytes, yes? Then it jumps to the end of it, last 64, sweep it, and anything that's flagged 80 turns it on. Notice the two different explanations how the computer comes on. The sysad push the button and it comes on. The cyber forensics guy is telling you, oh, because everything that happened along that line could make or break a case, right? Because if the computer did not move past sector 0, it could be that it had a boot sector virus, it was wiped. Or it could mean a variety of other things, right? Not because it's not booting means that we need to reinstall. So all those things we get excited about. And the time zone, we pay attention to time zone as well. You look on the computer and you see Bogota and you see all kind of time. In March and in October, the computer will backdate itself. I give you a case I worked on with it's a nice payroll accountant, I like investigating accounting people. They have tons of Excel documents. But this lady, she had no files on her computer, and I got really curious to see a user who's working at a company for 3 years with no files on the computer. And what we were able to prove is that she updated the computer on her own, right? And when she updated the computer on her own, she moved it from Windows 7 to Windows XP to Windows 7 on her own. And then she started doing some very phony things like intercepting the CEO's emails, read them, and then right click on them on the server and flag them as unread. So she was being able to see a lot of things that going on. And that took about 3 days to really pick up what the individual was doing. So these sort of knowledge in computer forensics, they come, and in cybersecurity in general, they come from not just this certification. And I have absolutely nothing against certification. I believe in them, but I also believe that it may be a little unfair to compare certification along with degrees. They're two separate things, and I always encourage individuals. It's important to get a solid education, right? It may come back to hurt you because with just a certification, you may be stuck at being a technician for a longer time than you have expected. So I got the benefit of, as I call it, a trifold education, and I'll tell you why I call it trifold education. I have my academics. I did my bachelor's, I did my master's. I have my certification, all of 18 of them, about 9 come to your certification. And I honestly can't say that one is better than the other. And I have my workforce education. That is the education you get through working and through being in the workplace. So to start a career in security, in cyber forensics, you must have solid analytical skills. And this is what I always share with persons. You don't get some of these um, survival skill for the workplace from particular certification. Very rare certification programs will teach you how to write reports. They don't dwell too much on that. And so you're not challenged with your subject verb agreement, your critical employability skills. And so you may end up being at a disadvantage. So I encourage persons take both. It's an expensive route, but we have to find ways to get both. So in forensics, I did the Security Plus, and then from there on, I realized that all security tools comes with Linux. All right, anybody here play with security tools and you realize that knowing Linux may help you a lot? Anyone?
Yes, definitely.
So it
And
becomes, go ahead, yes?
I was going to say that the operating system that they usually use for security is Linux based, Kali. So I think most persons who dabbled in it should know by now.
Right, so that is one thing I got a hold of, the Linux knowledge, because it's very crucial that you understand that in not just incident response, but in security in general. It's a cool skill set to carry to the table. You're not going to survive too far in cybersecurity not appreciating networking. And so having a solid foundation in networking will go a long way for whichever field you're taking. And I say field in cybersecurity, whether it is business continuity, risk management, because our computers work based on ports and protocols, right? And your appreciation for ports and protocol is very important to the issue of cybersecurity. If you're a security analyst, all viruses and trojans and advanced persistent threats, they come at you through a port, right? And if they're coming at you through a port using a specific protocol, because they violate the protocol, that's how they get to damage your computer, right? So your appreciation of it, and I have a challenge sometime when a security person would tell you that, oh, I found a Trojan coming through a specific port. That doesn't help me one bit. If I'm a CISO, I want to know what's the risk being faced to the business now, and do we need to close that port? Do we need to open that port? And what's the specific protocol that is being manipulated, and to what extent is our business critical services relying on these specific ports? So I share that with you to let you know that having shallow knowledge in networking comes back to hurt you to some extent. So you have to have your Linux competencies, have to have your basic understanding of security, and then you need a basic understanding of networking ports and protocol. All right? Too complex for anyone? Too much to learn?
No, I don't think, well, hopefully I'm speaking on behalf of most of the individuals that are here. I don't think it's too complex. And as you know, there's a lot of resources out there, YouTube, a lot of websites with training material and so forth. So it's not a matter of too complex, it's a matter of time taken to learn all of these different practices.
Well, I finished a master's in security in 2006, but I didn't consider myself a security professional until about 2009 because I wanted
Noted.
time to learn to build up my skill set. So in terms of because it's difficult to protect what you don't know, right? And so in
Right.
terms of as I said, the ports, the protocols, the networking devices, and just to give you this as it jumped out to me just now in terms of certifications and degrees. I've sat in many interview panels and I've seen persons with stuff like CCNP. And when you come to an interview with a CCNP and you fail to understand what what a what a VPN is different from a VLAN, I've lost interest in you as a candidate because you're coming into an interview with certifications and you're struggling to explain VPN versus VLAN. I'll have a serious problem with you right there. So sometimes we study, but we're not practicing, right? And that is why I like subjects like CCNA, because once you get CCNA, or even if you don't take the exam, the training itself exposes you to switches, port security. So you're not just talking about port security, oh, it comes in a book and I saw it in a question, but in CCNA, you're implementing port security on a switch, right? So you can defend yourself. So whatever knowledge you're getting, whether it is a degree or a certification, you must be able to apply and articulate it in a business context, right? And that is where I see a lot of persons get a lot of certifications, right? But they lack the business context. And because you're going to perform security, you're going to perform forensics in a business context. And it is very important to the business that as the security professional, you understand, because you could put up a presentation with viruses, right? And you have half the board members looking and wondering, what are you talking? What does this have to do with me? And cybersecurity is expensive. Firewalls are expensive. You don't get a CFO to take out and to write a check and give to you to replace the firewalls on the network. It must be tied back to the business value. And so I encourage you to have that wide understanding of how IT works in the business, and then you can use your cybersecurity knowledge now to solve the business issues, right? I don't know if it's making sense to you guys. You map your technical skills and you move it into understanding the way technology works for the business, because a denial of service is basically denying the business the opportunity to use IT to make money, right? So when a hacker denies the business an opportunity to make money, then the business has an interest, a vested interest now, right? To deny such attacker the ability to cause the company a significant amount of loss. I don't want to be going too deep in it. Is it making sense, guys? You can tell me if it's making it clear the path to security.
Definitely,
Yes.
well, we have a lot of options, and for those who decide that they want to choose, the at the base, you need to not only have the certifications or the degree, but you need to be able to apply that knowledge within the business context. So that is upskilling yourself technically, working on your soft skills, and also being able to map your theory to your technical.
Right. So you're correct that and this is just my philosophy. It's not in a book. I believe it is very important that in times like these in 2021, when you work anywhere in IT, your ability to solve problems with the technology is more important than where the certification came from, or whether it is a degree, or whether it is the heart level 3, or it's a heart level 5 in security, whatever qualification you come with. Businesses are looking for individuals who can solve problems, right? And I shared with some young persons last week, if there's something on your resume you can't articulate, don't put it on it for the job interview, right? You may put yourself in some serious problems when you get there. All right. So I'll prefer to take some questions than to talk to you ad nauseum.
Okay. So what I want to do is a bit of direction towards career path, because you dive deep into like the what computer security forensic is analyst. We want to also get a bit more of like step one to get into this field. These are the stuff that you probably need to learn. If there's any certification or degree that you would recommend, as well as is there any resources that you would recommend for individuals to take a look at when come on to you know, computer forensics or security forensics.
Right, there's one place now to get a degree with that is heavily with forensics, and that is at the Caribbean Maritime University.
Noted.
It's a Bachelor of Science in digital forensics and security, and there is at least 5 to 6 forensics courses in that bachelor's degree, because it was written so that you're covering the A+ knowledge, the network plus, and I had a very key role in writing that degree program. So we didn't want a talk shop degree program when it was developed in 2016. So you find that you do stuff like Python. Python is one of the course, and Python is what a lot of security professionals and pen testers use. So when you take that degree program, you're learning Python in the process as you go along. If you have certification only in forensics, it may get you through the door, but the benefit of really coming to you, Renee, the benefit of really getting your dual qualifications is that when it comes to testifying, you, to be qualified as an expert witness, you must have the specific experience and academic qualification to testify on what you have discovered on the computer. So I've done work twice in the Supreme Court in Jamaica, and when you get on those cases, they either gonna call you a computer technician, or they're gonna call you a cybersecurity expert, right? And we live in a country where education is a big deal. So without the specific academic credential, then you may not be properly classified as an expert witness per se. So in terms of industry and private sector government, I've done policies, I've done procedures for cybersecurity, for privacy. I've worked on basic system administration, networking, firewall configuration. I've gotten into investigation. We have different types. You have the cold forensics. You give me a hard drive and I go investigate the hard drive and give you some answer. As well as we have servers that cannot be turned off, but we need answers on them, right? So that is what we do as live enterprise forensics. So I do some amount of industry. If I don't do that, I'll lose my I lost count. I think it's probably 13, 14 certification. I may lose them if I don't keep practicing, right? There's a question, what certificates do you recommend for networking and pen testing, right? the one certification don't really do it. You can have the Network Plus, and you have a solid foundation in networking, but you might not be able to configure a switch. Not sure if that's making sense to you guys. You're not gonna get the knowledge in Network Plus to configure a switch. Literally like to implement port security and implement VLANs and all those. But in Network Plus, you get a solid foundation. So I have an appreciation for taking one for the practical and one for the theory. For pen testing, I like CH give you a lot of tools you get exposed to, right? A lot of open source pen testing give you the tools that you need, but a CompTIA pen test certification gives you the foundation for pen testing. And why break that down like that? You could, because you have to look at certification to know what gap you have. I took CH and I learned a lot of tools. I learned how the hackers work. I learned the techniques they're using. And that is good. And I appreciate that. But when it comes on to understanding the business value of pen testing, I had to get that from the CompTIA pen test certification, because that is where you understand the red team, the blue team, and see it as a business process. And pen testing now become a testing process within the enterprise and not just running some tools, all right? Well, there's solid certification, Siobhan Brown, for there's some practical aspect of it, but you get a firm grip of how the technology work when you take those certifications. For more practical, you may touch some more certification, but they all complement each other. Very expensive process, so you have to plan your path carefully. Ashane?
Just clarifying what Andrew just answered. Shabin asked two questions. What certification do you recommend for networking and pen testing? Which is what he answered. Also, Shabin followed up on with two questions. So you recommend CompTIA for theoretical foundation in most, if not all, which Andrew indicated. It's more get as much practical as possible, but theoretical from the business sense and from understanding the infrastructure as well about security based on all of the what he said before the question. Yeah, he answered that. And then a follow-up question, are you saying that CompTIA certificates provide a foundation?
Yes, they do. In context, I appreciate all of my, I think, 8 or 9 CompTIA certifications because they provide you with business concepts, right? So the A plus, the Network plus, all the ones that I've taken, even Server plus I learned a lot about system administration, the enterprise technology. So when I jump into A plus, I learn how to fix one machine. But when I jumped to Server Plus, I was now thinking about an enterprise perspective on computers. That's where I learned about Windows Update Service and domain control and all these different aspects of enterprise technology was there. They are renewed every 3 years. There's some certification that you have to retake the exam. So be aware of that. Like Cisco, either you take a higher one or you retake it. But with I maintain my CYSA plus and everything down the line is maintained after that. Every 3 years.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. We only have 2 minutes to leave. We have to wrap up shortly. Before we go, is there any additional question that you would like to ask Andrew? Okay. All right. With that said, thank you everyone for attending. As mentioned before, this event is an ongoing series. Each month we're going to keep it around this time, which is fourth Tuesday or third Tuesday. I'm actually not sure. But it's going to be an ongoing series. Next month, we're going to look at project management as well as continuing on some of the segment from the speakers that's supposed to be on this call into next month as well. So we have project management, quality QA, quality assurance, and a couple other career path we want to dive into. If you're interested in finding out anything about any career path that you're interested in, you can also reach out to us and we'll add it to our series. Just in case, you know, a lot of individuals are interested in that career path. So you can reach out to us on community.jamaicans.dev to let us know if you want to us to showcase a particular career path. In terms of this event, of course, this event wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, G5 Particle Present and Vertis Technology, as well as my company, Osuba Limited. With that said, I hope everyone, okay, is it possible to get this recording? So all of our events are recorded. We are going to publish it on our YouTube page, but what we do initially is to post them on our meetup.com page where we have the events, as well as on community.jamaicans.dev. And the third place we tend to post it is in our Telegram chat for the community. So yes, it's recorded and we will share it once it's rendered and sent to us. With that said, thank you everyone for attending and all the best for the rest of the day and the week. And thank you again, Andrew, for presenting. Take care, everyone, and see you at the next meeting.